Welcome to Mindfuel with me, your host, Tamara. Life gets busy, and oftentimes we find ourselves running on empty and putting our own needs last. Each episode of this podcast will provide you with actionable advice, compassion, and a little tough love to give your mind the fuel it needs to live a full, healthy, and balanced lifestyle. I'm so grateful you've chosen to spend some time with me today. So sit down, relax, and prepare to refuel. So today I'm here with my teacher bestie and my partner in crime, Kristyn. Kristyn has been teaching for 4 years in grade 1. Her and I have been teaching at the same school for a few years now, but this year she now teaches grade 2-3 with me. She's a dog mom and a wife to her husband, Andy. She loves the outdoors, listening to a good podcast, and she's super creative and artistic. Today we're going to be talking about how we found a teaching partner in each other and why it's so important to have one. Hi, Kristyn. I'm so excited to have you on the show today. I know we both feel such a huge weight lifted off of our shoulders this year since we've been put on the same grade level team and have really started to feel like our personal time is truly our personal time. And I know for me, it's been a huge game changer since having you as my teaching partner.
Well, thank you so much for having me on. I'm so excited to tell the listeners all about how finding a solid teaching partner has changed the teaching game entirely for me and all the ways that we make it work so that we can keep each other having a healthy work-life balance.
Okay, so let's just dive right in. Let's first talk about what do we even mean when we say teacher bestie? Like, what is a teacher bestie and how would we explain it?
Well, some things that come up for me when I think of a teacher bestie is someone that you get along with really well, someone that you can turn to and you know that they'll always be there, someone you work well with who has the same style of planning, teaching as you, someone you can always rely on. So when you make a plan that you're going to meet or you're going to work together or plan, you know that they're always going to show up and they won't back out or make other plans during that time. You always know that they'll be there. I like us because we're good planning partners.
Yeah, totally.
We meet every single week on Wednesdays.
Yes.
Plan the next week. It's my favorite ever.
Me too. It has seriously changed so much for me because I just know that Wednesdays, we're going to get the planning done and I don't have to worry about it before Wednesday.
Oh, and we get all of our stuff printed, prepped, planned, put into our bins, and we're ready for the next week. We don't even have to think about it. It's my favorite part about having a teacher bestie and working so well together.
I know, it's so good. And it's it helps you because you can share your ideas with each other when you're planning. And when you have that crazy idea of something new you should do and for that next cool project, and you're hey, is this going to even work? Or is this too weird? Or is it just going to be complete chaos in my class? And then you get to share it with you, or I get to share it with you. And it just helps because you're no, that's a great idea. We can adjust it in a certain way so that it will work better. Or you bring in your experiences and then I bring in mine and we create something new together.
Absolutely. And especially because I moved from a different grade into the grade that we are now currently teaching, and you've always taught that grade. It's so nice to have someone who I can rely on giving me really good project ideas. And then I can bring a fresh perspective into the curriculum as well as someone who hasn't taught it really other than in practicums. So it's nice to just bounce ideas off of each other and know that you're doing the very best activity, project, whatever for the outcome that you're doing because we've discussed it with each other.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. And also I love that you do come from a grade 1 class because then when I have kids who may be struggling or are still maybe working at a grade 1 level, then you have all those resources that you used.
Totally. Yeah. And knowing where they came from last year, yes, what was expected of them at the end of grade 1 and what that means at the beginning of grade 2.
And then of course, as teachers, we always have crazy stories. And it's so nice to just have somebody who is willing to listen and wants to hear your stories and also knows your students.
Yes.
So when you come tell them something happened with so-and-so that day, they totally get it.
Especially because we're like partner classes, like you and I have partner classes. So we're like paired up for a lot of activities just in the school anyway. So we're often like even co-teaching together and stuff. And so we know each other's students so well. I love that. Every day I want to sit in your room and just like tell you about kind of what happened, all the amazing things and all the funny things, and even like debrief if something didn't go so well, and just having someone who really gets you and your kiddos because you're around them. And it's just really nice to have someone to talk it out with at the end of the day.
And just like to vent to if you had a bad day, and knowing that like if you go to that person's room and sit on one of their tables, they're like, all right, let's do this.
Yeah.
Like, let's
tell me
talk.
what happened.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just nice because you don't feel like you're bothering them.
No.
Like, you know that they want to hear your stories, and that they're going to come and do the same thing to you the next day. And so you're just like such a good listening ear. And it's nice to have that one person that's going to listen to you and be your cheerleader and just like encourage you too.
Totally. And like even someone, as much as we try to like leave work at school, it's so nice having someone that I can just like send a text to at like 6 p.m. because I forgot to tell you something really funny that happened that day, or I forgot about something that was coming up tomorrow. And I know that you'll always kind of be there to listen to me.
Yeah, for sure. Or like someone that you're going to send that funny teacher TikTok that's totally relatable. Like I always send it to you.
Me too. I love that.
So now that we know what a teacher bestie is, how would somebody even choose one?
Well, I think like the obvious one is that you want to be in the same grade level, like especially in elementary. I guess for high school, middle school, you'd want to be at the same subject area, just basically so that you can be planning together and working together and you're on the same team. And I know at our school, it's like so important for our teams to be like working collaboratively. And it's kind of expected of us to kind of work as a team, work as a group, do kind of the same year plan. So it kind of makes sense to be teacher besties with someone who is teaching the same thing as you so that you can work on planning together and stuff.
Yeah, I don't know if it would really work as well if it was as someone who was teaching something else. Like you guys could come up with some ideas, but one of the biggest things is the planning.
Yeah. And they could still be like your go-to friend. Like I know even last year when I was teaching grade 1, like you and I were still friends, even though we weren't teaching the same grade, but it wasn't the same type of relationship of like the person you turn to and the person at the school that you kind of rely on.
Yeah. It's kind of cool to see like how it changed and how much now we just like completely rely and depend on each other. And like, you're my first person that I go to.
Me too.
About anything school related. And then I think also it's super important to have the same like general teaching style as your teacher bestie, because you want to have those small differences that complement each other, but you don't want to be too different.
I totally agree. Like some people love to plan in like a really like loose way where like anything could happen and I let my kids kind of lead me through. Some people plan in like a really like rigid way of like I know exactly what I'm doing each moment of the day, and then there's anywhere in between, of course. So it would be really hard to be teacher besties and like a planning partner with someone who had a totally opposite idea of what planning even means, because there are people who just love huge projects that are really like open-ended and crazy. And that's kind of how they teach all the time. And then there are people who just can't work like that. So I think it is super important to have a general idea of your teaching style and how that complements the person next to you. Because, you know, when we do our planning, you and I are kind of planning our classes to do the same thing or like the similar things each week. And so if you had an idea of something really loose and crazy, and I had an idea of something really strict and rigid for our classes, it would be really hard to plan together like cooperatively.
Oh yeah, for sure. That plays a huge, huge part. So definitely when you're looking for that teacher partner, you want to make sure you guys have the same teaching style and your differences aren't too drastic. But like I said, those small differences can really complement each other. Like if somebody is really good or experienced with literacy, and then the other person's like loves to plan numeracy and like fun math activities and stuff like that. And for us, a lot of it too is you have more of a creative brain than I do. And I'm very like linear thinking. And so it helps to put those two together and then be able to make like more fun and creative projects together.
And it like pushes the other person. Like when you come in with more of like a math brain, which that's somewhere that I've always struggled, is like a math logical brain, I guess. When you come in with really like sensical math activities, that makes me a better teacher because that's not where I'm the strongest. And then when I come in with like a really fun and like creative art activity, I'm speaking for you, but it makes you a better teacher because it pushes you outside of your comfort zone and makes you do a better job at the things that you're maybe not as comfortable with.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. Something else that's really important with a teacher bestie, this might be one of the most important things, is that it has to be someone that you can rely on and count on like 100% of the time. So if they have to be committed to your partnership, because if they're not, then that will take away that like that guaranteedness of it.
Yeah, like the consistency of having that person. Like they have to be someone that you know will show up every single time you need them, who will always listen to you, who will always prioritize your planning time together. I think that's huge.
That's a big one, prioritizing the planning time, because you don't want to feel like, oh, maybe they won't come to this planning meeting this week. And then it stresses you out because you're like, okay, well, should I plan alone? Like, should I get started on the planning? Is this even going to happen?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that word consistency is it, because you want to know that it's every single week and it's going to happen no matter what.
Yeah. And you also don't want to feel like a bother on your friend or your partner. You don't want to feel like, oh, is my teacher partner going to be annoyed if I ask them if we're planning, or are they going to be upset if I show up at their room to kind of vent? You have to just have a sense of trust with them that, no, you're not bothering them. And this is like a relationship that is for both people and benefits both of you. And you should never feel bad about wanting to kind of meet with your teaching partner. And
yeah. And I think we kind of had that conversation at the beginning, especially about the planning. We were like, okay, we both want to have someone to plan with. We think we work well together. Like we set a date and then we stuck to it.
Yeah.
And so even it's okay to have that conversation with someone who you feel like would be a good teaching partner for you, and asking them and being like, hey, do you want to plan together?
Yeah.
And like, would you be able to commit to one day a week to sit down and plan the entire next week?
Yeah. And we've been like so consistent because I was sick that one week earlier in the year, and we literally video chatted while I was homesick and planned the next week while I was at home, because it was such a priority for both of us that we had to have that week planned. Even if I'm sick, we're still going to plan it in person. And then the flip side is, because I was not there that week, you printed all my stuff for me. So it's like such a wonderful relationship that we have.
It really is. You just know that someone always is there to help you. Someone has your back. And like you said, you're not going to be a nuisance to them if you ask them to do something, because it is like a give and take relationship where you know that if you do something for them, they're going to do something back for you eventually when you need it. And I think it was awesome, like how we value that planning time so much that when we're homesick, we will still plan, like you said, virtually and get it done. Sometimes you do have things that come up on that one day a week. Like we plan on Wednesdays. Sometimes things come up, or like I have to book my appointment for like my massage or whatever on a Wednesday. And we're totally flexible with that.
And we always reschedule for like, oh, if we can't do it on Wednesday, then we'll do it on the Tuesday, like the day before, or the Thursday, the day after. But it's never like, oh, I can't make it this week, so we're just not doing it.
Exactly.
We never leave each other like high and dry.
No, never. And that reminds me actually about if somebody like doesn't have something to do during a block of time when you're planning. Like, for example, if I had art on a day and so I wasn't going to be doing math when you were doing math, We don't just leave each other hanging like, oh, you go figure out what you're going to do that day. We're like, okay, well, you could do this. And I did this activity last week. Like maybe you could fit it in here.
Totally. We're always trying to like help each other out. And even if it like doesn't work for both of us, we're still willing to put an idea out there to help the other person in their class. And it's kind of nice because we like know each other's classes so well. And so you might be like, oh, I have this really good group activity that you can try because I know your class really likes group activities. It's just such a wonderful thing that we're able to do and help each other out. Even if it doesn't work for both of us, we still are willing to help each other brainstorm ideas.
For sure. Those are some really important points for how to choose a teacher bestie. But once you have a teacher bestie chosen, there's so many benefits. And so we want to talk a little bit about like, why should somebody choose to have someone to work this closely with and to plan with? What is the point of having this teacher bestie or even just teaching partner?
I think the big one is our weekly planning time and setting a time to think about the following week. And then you don't think about it at any other point that week. It's like setting your like worry time for us every Wednesday. You and I worry together about the following week. We plan the entire thing. We prep the entire thing, and then we don't have to think about it again. So prior to Wednesday, I'm not really thinking about the following week or planning at all. Thursday, Friday, I'm not really thinking about the following week or planning. I think about it on Wednesday. I plan it with you on Wednesday. I prep it with you on Wednesday, and then I'm good to go. It's huge.
It's huge to just have that in the back of your mind the whole week, just putting those worries aside and knowing that Wednesday, I can ask Kristyn about this, or I can ask her about like that upcoming thing that I don't know how to do or that's new for me. And I don't have to worry about it at all until Wednesday.
Yeah. And it is like our scheduled worry time together because that's when we even discuss like, oh, we should really book that field trip or we should really plan that big, huge activity we're going to do. Or what are you planning for Mother's Day? Even those big ideas we talk about every Wednesday. And it's so wonderful because even when I come into your room, like after school on a random Monday, just to kind of chat about the day and talk about how it went, we're not talking about planning. We're not talking about those big things like the field trips and the special days. We're just having like quality time to talk and vent about our day. And Wednesday is the only day we talk about those big things that we are worrying about.
Yeah. It just completely changes the teacher life for me because as a teacher, like before I had such a close teaching partner, I would go home and worry about those things. And it would take up my thoughts in the evenings or like not being able to sleep and thinking about what I have to do tomorrow and what I'm going to do next week. And if I'm on the right track and same track as everybody else, I know that I can count on that meeting to talk to you about those things. It really helps because it's someone that you can always count on. And we kind of talked a little bit about like when you're sick or away, but this is a huge benefit because when you're sick, there's always something that you wish you would have left in your classroom, or you wish you would have grabbed your planner and brought it home the day before, or, you're not sure if you put that one thing in that spot where you think you put it. So you're not sure if you should put it in your sub plans or not. Totally. And so I can always count on you to grab those things for me or just like rush into my classroom and move something to the right spot. I know I've texted you before just saying like, hey, can you go check like my Monday drawer and make sure that I put that one photocopy in there because I don't want to tell my sub it's in there if it's not.
Yeah. The other thing is because we do plan everything together, we often will plan like either math activities that require like base 10 blocks or like manipulatives or little like bags of stuff, or science experiments. Me and you will often plan them. Like I will do the hands-on activity or the experiment on Monday and you will do it on Tuesday. So we already have it prepped. And then if you are sick on Tuesday, I just give it to your sub. And all you have to say is ask Kristyn about this activity. There were a couple of times this year when I was sick and I would just say, that thing that we're doing on Wednesday, can you just run it down to my sub really quick and like show her how it works?
I know. And not having to type it all out because I know you're just going to go tell her.
Well, and then the other thing is like bringing stuff to you because There was a time this year when I was home for like almost a week sick, just with the restrictions and everything. And I didn't bring my planner home and I needed it to plan the next week. And so you, of course, drop it off on my doorstep and like bring all my stuff that I needed to plan the following week.
Yeah, it is that one person that you're going to text to do that for you.
Yeah.
Because I would feel like a bother to anybody else.
Me too.
I mentioned this a little bit already, but it takes so much pressure off of you when you have someone to talk to about your planning and go over things with before you do them. We always have that worry, like, is it good enough? Am I doing enough? Am I on the same track as everybody else? Are people doing things differently than me? And just knowing that we are doing the same thing for the most part and like we're teaching in the same ways, it really gives me that comfort.
You can like eliminate all those other ideas and just focus on the best way to do it and like take comfort in that.
Absolutely. And it gives you that like complete reassurance that you're doing a good job. And like, how many times have we come together to plan and we're like, okay, what is the best way to teach this concept? And one of us will just be like, oh, I've done that. Like, this worked really, really well. Let's do this.
Yeah.
And it's just that easy.
And it's just fast, it's done, and you don't have to spend hours and hours and hours reading through your like resources and thinking about every possible way you could do it and then shuffling through. Yes. It's like, oh, my teacher bestie did this last year and it worked amazing. Yeah. So we're going to try it again. And of course it works amazing the second time.
And that just reminds me, it should be someone who's agreeable. That is a huge one. Like, it's got to be someone who is not going to be trying to like one up every idea that you have or be like, oh, well, yeah, we could try that, but like maybe this might work. Maybe we should do this instead. Someone who's like really wishy-washy and like isn't good with making quick decisions.
Right. Or like having a lot of pride and really wants to only use their ideas and not willing to listen to your ideas. Some people just really enjoy working alone and using the ideas that they've come up with, and that's wonderful. It can be like challenging if you're not willing to be flexible in your ideas. Because if you and I both come to each other with a math activity to teach, let's say multiplication again, you can't let your pride win. You just have to listen to both ideas and think objectively, which is the better way to teach this and which is the more engaging way for students. We're doing that one. It doesn't matter if it's my idea or your idea. Yes. We're going to do the best one for the kids.
Another thing I find super, super helpful is having someone that you know is going to remind you of those important things coming up. And so I'm never worried that I'm going to like miss something or forget about something, because I know that whenever something comes up for you and you're like, oh yeah, we have like picture day next week, then you might send me a text and say, hey, don't forget, like, it's picture day next week. Even sometimes in the mornings, like texting and saying, hey, don't forget you're supposed to wear like blue today. We're always thinking of each other.
Absolutely. And often we'll draft an email each week to send to our parents, and we'll often type it together in Word, share it with each other. We'll create it together so that we're not missing any important dates. Like, yeah, again, next week is picture day, or we have a special day on this day. The important things that we need to tell families, we type that email together, and then we actually send it to both families. So it kind of cuts the work in half. So you don't have to draft an entire email about the upcoming events because we've done it together.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, obviously, there are tons and tons of benefits for having a teacher bestie. I honestly feel like I could go on forever because as we talk, like more and more things come up in my head. But if you are listening and you do not have a teaching partner, we obviously would highly recommend getting one.
Yes.
Because it really does change your life as a teacher. And I feel like for me, it's brought me so much more personal time. One thing to remember is that teaching, as much as it doesn't feel like it sometimes, it is your job. It is not your life. It shouldn't take over your entire life.
Yeah, your personal time is still yours and it's valuable.
Anyways, I think we're going to cut it off here, but I just want to say thank you so much, Kristyn, for joining me today. And thanks for being such a wonderful teacher bestie to me, because it's just been so good this year, and I'm so grateful to have you.
I know. I'm grateful for you too.
Thank you. So yeah, thanks so much for coming today. I thought this was a really great discussion to have, and I hope this helps somebody who isn't quite sure how to balance their own teacher life as well. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Mindfuel. I hope this episode allowed you to spend some time focusing on you. If you know someone who needs to hear this or would love this podcast, please share it with them or post it onto your story. I want to leave you with one of my favorite quotes by Katie Reed. Self-care is giving the world the best of you instead of what's left of you.